On February 28, 2026, an Iranian commander looked into a camera and spoke four words that should have made every American stop what they were doing. The strait is closed. No explosions, no dramatic Hollywood scene, no missiles streaking across the night sky. Just insurance companies pulling coverage and sailors refusing to sail. 20% of the world's oil supply quietly disappeared from the market. You could almost hear the soft click as the lifeblood of the American economy thickened and slowed. Within 48 hours, Brent crude hit $142 per barrel. Freight insurance for the Persian Gulf went from $20,000 per voyage to $2 million if you could get it at all. Tankers that normally queued up outside Bahrain like taxis at an airport simply turned around and headed back to Singapore. No drama, no fanfare. The global economy just quietly started to bleed. And right then, two slower knives were already moving. One headed straight for your grocery store and your wallet, the other aimed at the hidden systems that keep your lights on, your 401k stable, and your kids' future predictable. Here's what almost nobody in America is telling you. Even if this conflict cools down faster than expected, the damage is already baked into your daily life for the next 12 to 18 months. The timer started the moment that commander finished his sentence. The first knife, the fertilizer shock. The first knife was fertilizer, and it's going to hit your kitchen harder than most analysts want to admit. Nearly half the world's traded urea and nitrogen fertilizers normally move through that narrow strait. When Qatar's largest urea plant went offline because its gas supply got cut, the price of the single most important ingredient in modern farming jumped 50% almost overnight. Saudi Arabia's export terminals went dark. Iran's phosphate shipments stopped completely. Within 2 weeks, global fertilizer prices were climbing at rates not seen since the 2008 food crisis. American farmers in Iowa, Illinois, and across the Midwest suddenly faced spreadsheets that made normal planting look like a losing bet. A farmer outside Des Moines who usually applies 180 pounds of nitrogen per acre looked at the new prices and realized that going full rate would cost him more than his expected profit on the entire harvest. Many cut back. Many waited and hoped for government help that may never arrive in time. A single 55-year-old farmer in the heartland captured it perfectly. Right now, we're just waiting and hoping. What almost no one is explaining to regular American families is how razor-thin our food system actually runs. Global grain markets operate on margins of just 2 to 4% between total production and total consumption. There is no giant strategic reserve of corn sitting in a warehouse waiting to rescue you. The USDA is already projecting a 3% drop in corn and wheat acreage for 2026. That doesn't sound like much until you realize it's enough to send prices at your local Walmart and Kroger up dramatically by this fall and winter. We're talking higher costs for bread, cereal, chicken, eggs, beef, pork, and everything else that depends on cheap grain. When global calorie availability tightens by even a few percentage points, the effects don't stay overseas in some abstract economic model. They show up in your monthly grocery bill, your restaurant prices, and eventually in the lunchboxes you pack for your kids. The connection between fertilizer and your dinner table isn't some distant theory. It's direct. Modern corn yields depend entirely on synthetic nitrogen. Cut nitrogen applications by 30% and yields drop by 20 to 25%. That lost production doesn't get made up somewhere else. It just disappears. And when American farmers plant fewer acres or cut back on inputs, the global system has nowhere else to turn. We are the surplus. When we pull back, the world gets hungrier, and prices adjust accordingly. The smart money is already adjusting, not panic buying, rotating. Potatoes stored properly in a cool, dark corner last 6 to 9 months. Paired with rice and dried beans, you've got complete protein that can stretch a grocery budget when prices spike. The same farmers facing fertilizer shortages are the ones quietly telling their own families to stock up now, while wholesale prices haven't fully caught up to the disruption. They know what's coming because they can see it in their own fields. Thinner applications, lower yields, tighter margins, higher prices downstream. If you're still thinking of food storage as some kind of paranoid fantasy, you're not paying attention to what the people who actually grow your food are doing with their own money. The second knife: energy, supply chains, and the dollar. While you're still trying to wrap your head around $6 bread and $9 eggs, the second knife, the energy and supply chain knife, was already cutting through the global system in ways that will reach your driveway, your power bill, and your retirement account. The first countries to feel it were the ones with almost no margin for error. Bangladesh had barely 3 weeks of fuel reserves when the strait closed. Sri Lanka went back to the same rationing that collapsed their government 2 years ago. Pakistan started shutting down schools to conserve diesel for power generation. The Philippines watched pump prices explode past levels that trigger riots. When those fragile economies began fracturing under the weight of expensive oil and dollar-denominated debt, the shock waves didn't stay over there. They came straight back to America, as broken supply chains for the cheap clothing, electronics components, and agricultural goods your family depends on every single day. Here's the part they won't say on cable news. When those currencies collapsed, remittances dried up almost overnight. Millions of workers who used to send money home from the Gulf suddenly lost their jobs and started heading back to Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and the Philippines. That triggered exactly the kind of political instability that makes container ships disappear from ports and factory orders get canceled. Your Walmart shirt, your kids' school supplies, the parts that keep American factories running, all of it got more expensive and harder to find. The global just-in-time system is optimized for efficiency, not resilience. When one link breaks, the whole chain seizes up in ways that take months to untangle. Even if Washington tries to patch things together with strategic petroleum reserve releases or last-minute diplomacy, the lag is already locked in. By Q3 of this year, if the strait doesn't fully reopen, global fuel stocks are projected to drop below critical thresholds. That triggers a second major price spike, one that will hit your gas tank, your heating bill, and the cost of every single product that moves by truck, train, or ship. This is no longer a foreign story. This is your story. When diesel prices climb past $6 per gallon, truckers start refusing marginal routes. That means empty shelves in regional stores first, the ones in smaller towns and rural areas that already operate on thin margins. Then, wider shortages. Refrigerated food becomes more expensive to move, so distributors prioritize high-margin routes and let the rest slide. The just-in-time system that keeps American supermarkets looking abundant begins to break down in ways that you will feel every single week. And here's the kicker. The same energy shock that drives up fertilizer prices also makes running backup generators brutally expensive. A gallon of gas that cost $3.50 last year might be $6.50 by September. Running a 5,000-watt generator for 8 hours suddenly costs you $50 instead of $25. Multiply that across a week-long outage, and you're looking at real money. Suddenly, a modest solar setup with a decent battery bank stops being a prepper fantasy and becomes the difference between a fridge full of spoiled food and one that keeps your family's medicine and groceries safe during longer outages. 100 to 300 watts of panel capacity paired with a lithium battery bank can keep critical appliances alive when the grid gets flaky. But only if you've already cut the fat from your power usage and learned to live without appliances that turn electricity into waste, heat. The time to figure that out is not during the outage. The biology doesn't care where you live. When food prices spike and calorie quality drops, immune systems across the country take a quiet hit. This isn't abstract. Kids get sicker more often. Older family members heal slower. Minor infections that used to resolve on their own start requiring medical intervention. Waterborne illness becomes more dangerous because stressed bodies have less margin for error. The same chaos that disrupts fertilizer shipments also makes spare parts for water treatment plants harder and more expensive to source and move. Municipal systems start running on borrowed time, delaying maintenance and repairs because the budget won't stretch and the parts are backordered. Small towns and rural systems are the first to feel it, but the risk spreads. That's when the small decisions you make in your garage, pantry, and backyard start carrying real weight. A few $100s in quality ceramic or carbon block water filters can protect your household for years, but only if you start testing them now, before panic makes every mistake expensive. Learn how they work, understand flow rates, know how to clean and maintain them. The knowledge is worth more than the gear. The market doesn't see it coming until it's too late. While Americans are busy arguing about gas prices at the pump, something far more dangerous is happening under the surface. The S&P 500 was still hitting new highs in May, even as the circulatory system of the entire economy developed multiple aneurysms. Let that image live rent-free in your head. It is 2007 wearing a different suit. Banks knew subprime mortgages were garbage. Rating agencies knew. Hedge funds knew. But the market kept climbing anyway because acknowledging the truth would have meant admitting the foundation was already cracked. No one wanted to be the first to blink. So they kept dancing, kept buying, kept pretending the music would never stop. Right up until Lehman Brothers collapsed and the entire illusion shattered in a single weekend. This time, it's not mortgage-backed securities hiding the rot. It's fertilizer lag, fuel shocks, and supply chain snarls compounding so elegantly that most families won't realize the ground shifted until they're standing in a half-empty store wondering how prices got so high so fast. Your grocery bill, your electricity rates, your car insurance, your property taxes. All of it is going to feel the delayed blast even if the war de-escalates tomorrow, because the mechanisms are already in motion. Farmers have already made their planting decisions. Supply chains have already fractured. Fuel reserves are already below normal levels. Currency shocks have already rippled through emerging markets. The consequences don't care whether the strait reopens next month, they're already loaded into the chamber. Financial analysts love to talk about soft landings and transitory shocks. What they mean is they're praying the system can absorb this without breaking. But the system wasn't designed to absorb a 20% cut in global oil flows and a 50% spike in fertilizer prices at the same time. It was designed to optimize profit in stable conditions. Resilience was traded away years ago in the name of efficiency. This is not how things fall apart in the movies. There's no single dramatic moment, no clear villain twirling a mustache, no heroic last stand, no moment where the president addresses the nation and everything suddenly makes sense. What you get instead is 1,000 small, elegant failures that compound so smoothly most families don't see it until the damage is already done. A trucking company quietly closes because diesel margins don't work anymore. A regional grocery chain shifts to shorter hours and fewer deliveries. A water treatment plant delays a critical repair for 6 months. A school district cuts breakfast programs because food costs spiked beyond the budget. None of it makes the news. None of it feels like a crisis in the moment. But 6 months later, you're standing in a Kroger that used to have 37 varieties of cereal and now has 11. Eggs are $7.99 a dozen. The pharmacy is out of your prescription for the 3rd time this year. Your heating bill is double what it was last winter, and you can't quite pinpoint when it all started to go wrong because it happened so gradually. The fertilizer knife has already cut. The energy and supply chain knife is moving through bone. The second fuel shock is loading up for this summer. The economic and political consequences are just beginning to clear their sheaths. You just watch the entire sequence play out in real time. The only real question is whether you treat this as another news story you'll forget by next week, or whether you start making the quiet, practical decisions that actually matter. Rotate your pantry with intention this month. Learn which crops and proteins store best under stress. Figure out how much reliable power you can guarantee when fuel gets expensive. Talk to your neighbors about community resources before everyone is scrambling. Because the strait is still closed, the knives are still moving, and the real harvest, the one that decides what ends up on your table this fall and winter, is still months away. The difference between watching it happen and living through it well is usually decided in your own garage, pantry, and checkbook long before the shelves start looking thin. The people who navigate this best won't be the ones with the most money or the biggest stockpile. They'll be the ones who saw the pattern early, made small adjustments consistently, and didn't wait for permission from cable news to trust their own eyes. You now have the map. What you do with it is entirely up to you.